Hi, everybody. And first of all, thank you for being here and giving us your attention to learn about the lead-based paint renovation, repair, and painting rule. Today, I'm going to cover some background information, talk about what the rule applies to and doesn't, its regulatory requirements, and information resources. I'm also going to request that you please hold all verbal questions until the end of the presentation, but feel free to add any questions to the chat as we go along. So lead-based paint was banned for residential use by the Consumer Product Safety Commission in 1978, but remains in nearly 30 million homes across the US. You'll see from this chart that the use of lead paint declined over time due to concerns over health effects and because of improvements in product alternatives. Let's talk about how lead dust can get into the body. Lead dust can come from multiple sources, including lead-based paint on surfaces where friction often occurs, such as window frames. Children are especially susceptible to swallowing lead dust as they eat, play, and engage in other ordinary hand-to-mouth activities. Children may also be exposed if playing in lead-contaminated soil or with toys and lead paint. People in general may be exposed to lead by breathing in or touching lead dust while spending time in areas where lead-based paint is deteriorating. People may also be exposed during renovation or repair work that disturbs painted surfaces in older homes and buildings. This activity can contaminate a home directly and can cause workers to bring lead home via hands or clothing. So what are the effects of lead on human health? Lead is particularly dangerous to children because their growing bodies absorb more lead than adults, and their brains and nervous systems are more sensitive to the damaging effects of lead. In children, lead can cause adverse health effects such as attention-related behavioral problems, decreased cognitive performance, reduced postnatal growth, delayed puberty, and decreased kidney function. Lead is also harmful to adults. It can cause cardiovascular effects, increased blood pressure and hypertension, as well as reproductive problems. And a pregnant woman's exposure is of particular concern because it can result in exposure to her developing baby. So as you can see, the health effects of lead are serious. And as we begin our discussion of the renovation regulation, it's important to note that studies have shown that renovation activities are associated with an increased risk in elevated blood lead levels in children.
Hey, Jordan, would you be able to speak just a tiny bit slower so we can make sure we get everything you're saying?
Sure, yeah.
Thanks.
Sorry about that, guys. So to address the issue of lead hazards created by renovation activities, EPA promulgated the Renovation, Repair, and Painting Rule. The rule is designed to address lead-based paint hazards created by renovation, repair, and painting activities that disturb lead paint in target housing and child-occupied facilities. So in our rule, target housing is defined as any housing constructed prior to 1978, except for housing for the elderly or persons with disabilities, as well as any zero-bedroom dwelling, unless any one or more children aged 6 years or under resides or is expected to reside in such housing. In our rule, a child-occupied facility is defined as a building or portion of a building constructed prior to 1978, visited regularly by the same child under 6 years of age. Child-occupied facilities may include, but are not limited to, daycare centers, preschools, kindergarten classrooms. Child-occupied facilities may be in target housing or in public or commercial buildings. Let's discuss who the renovation applies to. Generally, it is anyone who is paid to perform work that disturbs paint in target housing and child-occupied facilities. This includes residential property owners and managers, general contractors, and specialty trade contractors like painters, plumbers, carpenters, and electricians, among others. What activities are covered by the renovation regulation? In general, any activity that disturbs paint in pre-1978 housing and child-occupied facilities are covered, such as remodeling, repair and maintenance, electrical work, plumbing, paint preparation, carpentry, and window replacement. There are, however, some exclusions to the rule, and this can include housing built in 1978 or later, housing for elderly or disabled persons, as well as zero-bedroom dwellings, such as studio apartments and dormitories. The exception to these two exceptions is if children under 6 years of age reside or are expected to reside in the housing, as explained in our definitions. Another exception is housing or components that have been declared lead-free. It's also noteworthy that lead testing is not required by the regulation. A contractor can either assume lead is present and follow the requirements of the rule, or have the areas affected tested by a certified individual to determine if the requirements of the rule apply. There are further exclusions. These are minor repair and maintenance activities that disturb 6 square feet or less of paint per room inside, or 20 square feet or less in the exterior of a home or building. And you can also note that minor repair and maintenance activities do not include window replacement and projects involving demolition or practices prohibited by the regulation. This renovation regulation is comprised of several significant components. It includes the accreditation of training providers, the certification of renovators and firms, pre-renovation education, and work practice standards. And in the next slides, we'll discuss requirements of each of these components. It is important to note that this program is delegable, meaning the program applies nationally, but states and tribes can be authorized to run their own programs. To obtain authorization, a state or tribal program must be found to be as protective as the federal program and provide adequate enforcement. Let's discuss the accreditation of renovation trainers. To be accredited for renovator or sampling technician training, trainers must submit an application and fee to EPA. The applicants are then evaluated to determine if they should be accredited. This includes a review of the facilities, supplies and equipment, training materials, and delivery of material. Trainers must be reaccredited every 4 years. Initial course must last a minimum of 8 hours. Refresher course must be at least 4 hours. Trainers must also provide EPA notification. Our renovation firms must be certified before they can perform, offer, or claim to perform renovations covered by this regulation. To obtain certification, firms must submit an application and fee to EPA. They must apply for recertification every 5 years. The rule also includes requirements for worker training. Renovators and dust sampling technicians must take the relevant 8-hour accredited training course. Following completion of training, course certificate serves as certification. Individual workers do not need to submit an application to EPA. A firm must assign a certified renovator to each job. All others working on the job must also be trained. These workers can either take an accredited renovator course or can be trained on the job by a certified renovator. Most larger firms have more than one certified renovator for increased flexibility when working multiple projects. This is needed because the certified renovator must be on site and perform certain functions for each job. Initial renovator certification is good for 5 years. To be recertified, a renovator must take a 4-hour accredited training course. The renovator has the option to take a course with or without a hands-on component. The course without hands-on component can be done entirely online. If the renovator chooses a course with a hands-on component, the certification is good for 5 years. If the renovator chooses an online course without hands-on, their certification is good for 3 years, and their next certification must be done with an in-person hands-on component.
Hey, Jordan, this is all some really great info. Would you mind just speaking even slower just for our interpreters?
Sure, yeah,
Thanks.
I will try. The rule requires firms to distribute information about lead hazards no earlier than 60 days before the renovation. This involves distributing EPA's Renovate Right pamphlet before starting renovation work to occupants and owners of homes and child-occupied facilities. Firms must also notify residents of work in common areas and parents when working in child-occupied facilities by either distributing renovation notices or posting informational signs. Okay, so let's talk about the work practice standards of the regulation. Firms must post signs defining the work area and contain the work area so that no dust or debris can leave. At minimum, this includes a work area that has a minimum of 6 feet of plastic sheeting covering the floor in all directions, closed windows, sealed doors, and HVAC outlets. Depending on the job, a larger area and more containment may be needed. The key thing to note is that firms are required to ensure that no dust or debris leaves the designated work area. There are certain practices that are also prohibited. This includes using open flame burning or torching, using machines that remove paint unless they are equipped with HEPA exhaust control, and operating a heat gun above 1100 degrees Fahrenheit. At the conclusion of work, the firm must clean the work area, and ensure that no dust or debris or residue remains. Once the area is clean, there is a cleaning verification process. The first step is a visual inspection by the certified renovator. If any dust or debris is found, the work area must be recleaned. Next is the cleaning verification procedure. This is a white gloved procedure where the certified renovator wipes the floor and all horizontal surfaces in the work area with a disposable cloth and compares it to an example card. If the wipe is cleaner than the card, the area is clean and ready for reoccupancy. If it is not cleaner, the area must be recleaned and verified once again. There is also an option to conduct dust wipe clearance testing instead of cleaning verification. If the area passes the dust wipe clearance test, it is ready to reoccupy. If it fails, it must be recleaned and retested. EPA lowered the dust lead hazard standards that identify when a dust lead hazard is present in target housing and child occupied facilities. The revised standards are 10 micrograms per foot squared for floors and 100 micrograms per foot squared for windowsills. These standards are not used in the RRP program, but they are used within the lead-based paint activities program and are part of a risk assessment. EPA also recently lowered the dust lead clearance levels of lead that can remain after lead removal activities. The new clearance levels are below 10 micrograms per foot squared for floors and below 100 micrograms per foot squared for windowsills. The clearance level of 400 micrograms per foot squared for troughs was unchanged. These new lower levels apply when dust wipe sampling is chosen in lieu of cleaning verification. The changes were effective March 8th, 2021 in states administered by EPA. Authorized programs have until March 8th, 2023 to revise their clearance levels. EPA is currently reconsidering both the dust lead hazard standards and the clearance levels in an upcoming regulatory action. EPA may suspend or revoke a firm certification or a trainer's accreditation if found to be non-compliant. In addition, non-compliance can lead to significant civil and criminal penalties. As I mentioned before, this program is delegable. Currently, there are 15 states and 1 tribe authorized to run their own programs. The states in green are authorized. Okay, and I wanted to share a video with you all. It'll highlight some of what we have been discussing, and it'll show a visual of lead safe work practices.
Most homes built prior to 1978 contain lead-based paint, and if you're renovating or considering renovating a home built during this time frame, it's important to understand the health and safety risks associated with lead-based paint and how to properly test for and remove lead-based paint from a home during renovations. Human exposure to lead-based paint is extremely dangerous, especially for pregnant women and children. Exposure can cause damage to children's developing brains and nervous systems, causing learning and behavioral problems as well as slowed growth. This is why it's so important to know and understand the signs of lead-based paint. Since I'm not a certified renovator, I hire companies that specialize in lead testing and are certified by the EPA, so I know exactly what areas have lead and where I am safe to work. Signage that defines the work must be posted and stay posted during the duration of any lead-based paint renovations. For interior renovations, the firm must cover or remove all objects in the work area. Close and cover all ductwork, Close all windows and doors in the work area. Cover the floor surface with taped down plastic or some other impermeable material. If the work being performed includes an outside space, doors and ground spaces require the same type of barrier as the interior work would. All window and doors within 20 feet of the work area must be closed and any openings covered in plastic. Covering doors that will be used with plastic sheeting so that the workers can pass through while keeping dust and debris confined to the work area. After a successful visual inspection, the certified renovator must verify each surface has been adequately cleaned using the wet-dry cloth method and remove warning signs. The waste from renovation activities must be contained to prevent release of dust and debris before the waste is removed from the work area for storage or disposal. While homeowners are not regulated under the RRP rule, it is strongly recommended that they do hire certified contractors to prevent exposure to the toxic lead dust created by renovations. If you own a home built before 1978, here are some things as a homeowner that you should know. Lead and lead compounds have been used in a wide variety of products found in and around the home, including paint, ceramics, pipes, and plumbing materials. Lead is most commonly found in old paint, likely under several layers of newer paint. Deteriorating lead-based paint, so anything peeling, chipping, chalking, cracking, damaged, or damp, is a hazard and needs immediate attention. As a homeowner, if you think you have any of these signs, you can purchase an EPA-recognized test kit online to perform at home, or you can send a sample to an EPA-recognized lab. To find more details regarding testing as a homeowner, you can visit epa.gov/lead. It is always best practice if you're unsure to take all precautions as if lead were known to be present. Remember, these measures are in place to prevent exposure to toxic lead dust. You can read more about RRP rule on the EPA's website here, and always check with your federal, state, and local lead-based paint regulations before you renovate or hire someone to renovate any home built before 1978. Now that your contractor has removed all permeable items and taped the area off, they are ready to get started on your renovation. If you have questions or are interested,
Okay, so we wanted to pause to make sure that our translators could catch up with the video, but I'll go ahead and move on, if that's okay. Here are some resources for contractors or people living in spaces with lead-based paint. We'll give you these slides at the end, so you'll have easy access to these links. I also wanted to show you guys EPA's lead paint program website. So our website has a lot of really good information. If you scroll down here to the bottom left, there's a bunch of links for further information on the renovation, repair, and painting program. I'm also going to show you a portion of our site with frequent questions as soon as it pops up. We have a lot of frequent questions generated on our website. There's 351. So I think that this search function can come in handy. So you'll have this link. You can come to our frequent search questions and type in something that you have a question about. I'll just type in general contractor. And then it'll display all of the relevant questions and answers. And then this slide also has some contacts, the lead helpline and the EPA regional contacts if you want to talk to a specific person for your question. Yeah, and thank you again for your guys' time. I'll now open this up to any verbal questions or questions that we need to answer in the chat.